Imagine sitting down to like a regular game of chess, right? But your very first move, your opening move, somehow just takes place entirely on your opponent's side of the board.
Great, just completely bypassing the middle.
Yeah. You just you ignore the center completely, you throw the conventional rules of engagement out the window and you strike directly at their backline.
It's a total subversion of, basic tactics.
Exactly. And today we are looking at a military campaign that takes that exact concept and just, I mean, it pushes it to an absolute terrifying extreme.
It really does.
We're examining a conflict where a mechanized battle is fought in the dense, urban streets of India, but the casualties, like the literal physical casualties, result in an entire island chain just shattering hundreds of miles away in the ocean.
Which is just geographically mind-bending.
It is the absolute definition of cartographic chaos. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're immersing you in a primary source document that is, it's stark, it's brief, but it is just incredibly dense.
Yeah, it really packs a lot in.
Yeah, it's titled Global Conflict, The Country Ball Campaigns.
And, while the text we have is concise, it provides a very specific window into this terrifying alternate reality.
All right.
We are analyzing the 4 distinct engagements detailed in Part 9 of this campaign because our mission today is to track the tactical evolution. We're looking at the escalation of weaponry, the shifting of these massive global alliances.
Which happens so fast, by the way.
So fast.
Yeah.
And, of course, the catastrophic geographical consequences of these battles. Because, you can't just read this as a list of skirmishes.
Right.
When you track the specific armaments deployed in these locations, you see a really clear, chilling narrative of how conventional warfare just rapidly breaks the laws of physics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the opening salvos of Part 9 set a bizarre and, incredibly aggressive tone right out of the gate.
Oh, absolutely.
We start with 2 one-on-one conflicts. The document refers to them simply as the first war and the next fight. And the very first engagement is New Zealand going head-to-head with Madagascar. And the text notes specifically that the combatants are utilizing a loadout of guns, tanks, and miniguns.
Right. That specific trio of weapons.
Yeah, but the battleground is what just stops me in my tracks. The battle takes place in Toliara.
Which is wild.
It's insane. Striking Toliara directly on the southwestern coast of Madagascar means New Zealand just bypassed half the globe.
It is a phenomenal feat of logistical power projection.
I mean, I have to push back on the reality of that, though.
How do they get there?
Yeah, how does New Zealand, this island nation, deeply isolated in the southwestern Pacific, project a heavy mechanized force all the way across the Indian Ocean to immediately strike Madagascar on its own soil?
It defies logic.
You don't just, magically teleport a mechanized division across the ocean. The logistics of supplying tanks and heavy munitions for an initial strike of that magnitude seem completely unfeasible.
Well, what's fascinating here is the specific weapon loadout they chose to bring across that ocean, which actually answers part of your logistical question.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Guns, tanks, and miniguns.
Mm.
In tactical terms, that is a highly specialized expeditionary trinity of armaments.
Okay, expeditionary meaning what exactly?
Meaning they didn't bring long-range artillery.
Yeah.
They didn't bring anti-aircraft batteries. They brought a force optimized entirely for immediate, brutal dominance upon landing.
Oh, because of the miniguns.
Precisely. A minigun is not a precision weapon. It's a rotary machine gun that fires, thousands of rounds per minute.
Just a wall of lead.
Exactly. It's designed for absolute area denial and rapid-fire infantry suppression. If you're launching a massive amphibious or airborne assault across an ocean, your biggest vulnerability is the exact moment you hit the beach or the drop zone.
Right, because you're completely exposed to dug-in infantry.
Yes. So you pair the heavy armor of the tanks to absorb the incoming fire with the miniguns to provide a suffocating umbrella of suppressing fire. It prevents the defending force in Toliara from even lifting their heads, let alone organizing a cohesive counterattack.
So they didn't just sail to Madagascar. They arrived with a doctrine designed to overwhelm coastal defenses instantaneously.
That's exactly it.
That makes a terrifying kind of sense, and we see that exact same doctrine immediately deployed in the next fight.
The Nepal and Thailand conflict.
Yeah, Nepal taking on Thailand. The weaponry is identical: guns, tanks, and miniguns. But the battleground shifts to Bangkok.
Right.
And the text is definitive here. It says Nepal wins the war against Thailand. But again, the geography here is staggering. Nepal is a landlocked, highly mountainous nation.
Very difficult terrain to move armor through.
Right. So pushing a mechanized invasion force out of the Himalayas and successfully conquering the sprawling, dense urban labyrinth of Bangkok seems impossible.
It is an incredible tactical achievement, but it reinforces exactly why the minigun and tank doctrine was chosen in the first place.
Because it's a city.
Yes. Urban warfare is traditionally a nightmare for an invading force. Cities neutralize the advantage of numbers and armor.
Oh, sure. A tank rolling down a narrow city street is highly vulnerable.
Incredibly vulnerable to infantry ambushes from rooftops, alleyways, windows.
Right, because
Yeah.
the defenders know the terrain and can just disappear into the urban density, like hit and run.
Exactly. So how do you counter that? You don't use precision strikes, you use overwhelming suppression. The minigun acts as the ultimate crowd control and area denial mechanism in an urban environment.
Ah, I see.
As the Nepali tanks roll down those wide Bangkok thoroughfares, the miniguns are continuously sweeping the structures, literally stripping away the urban cover. It is a doctrine of sheer blunt force.
It's almost surgically blunt, if that makes sense. Like you can practically visualize it. In both Toliara and Bangkok, this doctrine of heavy armor backed by rapid-fire suppression is the defining characteristic of this early phase.
It's their winning formula.
And it works flawlessly against a single conventional opponent. It yields decisive results. But then, the fundamental nature of the conflict changes.
The tactical requirements evolve as the scale of the war expands.
Yes, because the text moves us into a conflict it calls the War for Macau. And the scale is completely different. It's no longer one-on-one.
It's a coalition.
We have China taking on a combined coalition of 3 nations simultaneously: Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia.
A massive force.
And they're all converging to fight in Macau. But here's where it gets really interesting. The weapon loadout completely changes.
Yeah, you got
The combatants are still using guns and tanks, but the miniguns are completely gone.
vanished.
They've been replaced entirely by bazookas. Now, spoiler alert for the history books, China wins the war against this 3-nation coalition. But I am genuinely struggling with this weapon swap.
Let's analyze the substitution then.
Okay, think about the tactical reality. If you are China and you are facing a massive combined force of 3 different nations converging on your territory, wouldn't you desperately want the rapid crowd control of those miniguns?
You would think so, yeah.
Right. If you're vastly outnumbered by incoming infantry from Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia, a minigun seems like the exact tool you need to hold the line. Dropping the miniguns for bazookas feels like dropping a fire hose for a sledgehammer when you're facing a 3-headed dragon.
That's a vivid analogy.
Well, I mean, a sledgehammer hits hard, but a fire hose keeps the flames back. Why make that trade when facing overwhelming numbers?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your analogy of the fire hose and the sledgehammer is actually perfect.
Really?
Yes, but you're assuming the threat from the 3-headed dragon is fire. What if the threat is scales?
Oh, wow.
The answer lies in the specific mechanical nature of a bazooka. A bazooka is a man-portable, recoilless weapon, but more importantly, it fires a shaped explosive charge.
A shaped charge, meaning like it focuses the explosion into a single penetrating beam?
Precisely. It is explicitly designed to penetrate heavy armor. It is a tank killer.
Okay, so
So the fact that the entire theater of war shifted away from miniguns and toward bazookas
yeah.
tells us exactly how that 3-nation coalition chose to fight.
They didn't just send infantry.
No, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia didn't just send massive waves of light infantry. If they had, China absolutely would have kept the miniguns. The text implies the coalition must have brought a massive, overwhelming amount of heavy armor.
Oh, wow. So they tried to overwhelm Macau with a massive armored column.
They brought tanks.
Yeah.
And when you're facing a combined coalition armor column, an infantry suppression weapon like a minigun is tactically useless.
Right, because thousands of rounds a minute won't matter if they just bounce off armored plating.
Exactly. You need shaped charges. You need the sledgehammer. The tactical data synthesizes perfectly here. The 3-nation coalition in Macau necessitated heavy anti-armor explosives over infantry suppression.
And we have to consider the specific geography of Macau, too. We're talking about a tiny, incredibly dense peninsula.
A very restricted terrain.
It's a heavily built-up, claustrophobic environment. We aren't talking about the open steppes where tanks can maneuver. Tanks pushing into Macau would be devastating, but they would also be forced into very predictable, narrow choke points.
Which turns those tanks into sitting ducks for defending infantry equipped with bazookas.
Exactly. It completely reframes the mental image of this battle. It wasn't the sweeping, rapid suppression we saw in Bangkok. The war for Macau was a grinding, explosive, anti-armor slugfest.
With street-to-street demolition.
Yeah. And China's victory over 3 combined adversaries highlights the sheer tactical superiority of the bazooka in that specific, highly constrained urban theater. They recognized the armored threat, adapted their loadout to heavily favor anti-tank explosives, and it won them the war against incredible odds.
It's a brilliant pivot. It shows a military apparatus capable of rapid evolution. But as we move into the climax of Part 9, we see that this evolution towards concentrated heavy explosives has consequences that defy conventional understanding.
You say the least.
The baseline of violence has been raised, and it culminates in what the text ominously calls the final battle.
The title alone carries a weight that the previous skirmishes just didn't have. It implies a culmination of all this escalating kinetic energy. The belligerents here are the Maldives versus India, and they maintain the new escalated weapon loadout guns, tanks, and bazookas.
The heavy explosive anti-armor doctrine is now fully entrenched as the standard for this global conflict.
Right, and the text tells us that the place of the battle is Madurai,
which is a major historic city situated deep inland within the southern Indian subcontinent.
Right, which means once again an island nation, the Maldives, has managed to project power and push a heavy armored column deep inland into the sovereign territory of a massive continental power.
It perfectly mirrors New Zealand's early strike on Madagascar.
It does. But the text delivers an outcome for this battle in Madurai that completely breaks reality.
It's jarring.
The battle takes place in mainland India. But the outcome states, and I quote, "The island of Maldives was broken in the Maldives."
It is a profound escalation from tactical warfare to geographical annihilation.
So what does this all mean? I really need you to explain the mechanics here, because I am struggling to accept this at face value.
It's definitely a leap.
Like the physical combat, the tanks, the shaped charges from the bazookas, they are actively engaged in Madurai. They are fighting in the streets of an inland Indian city. Yet the catastrophic consequence of that localized battle is the literal physical fracturing of an island archipelago located hundreds of miles away in the Indian Ocean.
Right.
How does a battle in one location physically break a landmass in another? That defies the laws of physics. Are we sure this isn't a metaphor? Like maybe their government collapsed or their economy was broken by the cost of the war?
This raises an important question about how we interpret the primary source. But we have to trust the specificity of the text here.
Okay.
It does not say the Maldives government was broken. It explicitly states the island of Maldives was broken in the Maldives.
Man, that's specific.
We're tracking a literal timeline of tactical escalation. We watch them move from localized infantry-suppressing miniguns to heavy armor-piercing bazookas in Macau.
Right.
What this final sentence suggests is that the continued, wildly concentrated use of this heavy explosive loadout has escalated the conflict beyond localized destruction.
Okay, but how? What is the physical mechanism that connects an explosion in Madurai to an island breaking in the ocean?
We have to look at the geology and the specific nature of the weapons. Remember what we established about the bazooka?
The shaped charge.
Yes. It fires a shaped charge designed to penetrate heavy armor. Now, imagine a battle involving potentially thousands of tanks and tens of thousands of these shaped charges being detonated continually within the confines of Madurai.
Okay.
Madurai sits on the Indian tectonic plate.
Wait, are you suggesting tectonic resonance?
It is the most logical synthesis of the extreme parameters presented in the text. The bombardment in Madurai wasn't just destroying buildings.
Oh my God.
The sheer volume of shaped anti-armor charges directing kinetic energy downward into the bedrock acted like a massive, localized seismic event. The combatants were inadvertently pounding the tectonic shield.
And that kinetic energy has to go somewhere.
Exactly. Seismic waves travel through the crust, seeking the path of least resistance or a fault line.
Wow.
The Maldives archipelago sits on the Chagos Laccadive Ridge, which is a prominent volcanic ridge in the Indian Ocean. The intense, concentrated bombardment in Badurai set a catastrophic shockwave through the Indian plate that resonated and released its energy directly along that oceanic ridge.
So it physically fractured the geological foundation of the Maldives.
Yes.
That is utterly terrifying. It means that by the end of Part 9, the combatants aren't just fighting for urban centers anymore.
No, the stakes have changed completely.
The sheer density of the explosive they are utilizing has weaponized the Earth's crust against them. The physical geography has become a conductor for their violence. They're unleashing forces that don't just kill the enemy in front of them, they erase land masses hundreds of miles away.
It highlights the ultimate horrific danger of asymmetrical escalation. You introduce heavy anti-armor explosives to counter tanks in a dense place like Macau, and tactically, it works perfectly.
Yeah, it solves the immediate problem.
But when you take that exact same explosive doctrine and multiply it in a massive continental battle like Madurai, the collateral damage isn't a city block. The collateral damage is a tectonic fracture.
It's an action at a distance that is almost impossible to comprehend. I mean, let's take a breath and really synthesize the incredible journey we've just taken through Part 9 of these country ball campaigns.
It's a lot to process.
When you track the evolution, it happens so fast. We started with what almost felt like conventional combat. We watched New Zealand and Nepal utilize a highly specific rapid-fire minigun doctrine.
Right, the expeditionary force.
Yeah, they used it to overwhelm infantry and secure decisive victories in Toliara and Bangkok. It was brutal, it was a logistical nightmare to execute, but the destruction was contained to the battlefield.
But the introduction of coalition armor forced an adaptation.
Exactly. We witnessed that critical turning point in Macau, the necessary tactical shift away from crowd control and toward heavy anti-armor bazookas to defeat a combined three-nation force.
Which secured China's victory.
Right, but it fundamentally altered the destructive baseline of the entire global war. They traded the fire hose for the sledgehammer.
And that new precedent directly resulted in the catastrophe of the final battle.
Because that heavy explosive doctrine was taken to Madurai, and the volume of shaped charges detonating against the bedrock was so violently profound that the kinetic shockwave literally shattered the Maldives archipelago out in the ocean.
It is a stark realization of how quickly conflicts, even in highly abstracted scenarios like this, can spiral entirely out of control.
Completely. We went from localized urban tank skirmishes to tectonic events that permanently alter the surface of the Earth.
The maps are no longer fixed. The ground beneath their feet is now an active participant in the destruction.
Which leaves us with a deeply unsettling reality for you to carry with you today as you ponder this conflict. The rules of engagement are gone.
Completely erased.
The physical integrity of the planet is actively failing under the weight of this arsenal. If the mere tactical escalation from miniguns to bazookas resulted in an entire island being physically shattered from afar,
You have to wonder what comes next.
exactly, what terrifying, world-altering weaponry and what unimaginable geographic devastation might be waiting for us when we finally turn the page to Part 10?